Is Bitcoin a safe place to park your cash as the Russia-Ukraine crisis rolls on? The cryptocurrency is up 13% since the invasion began, though losing some steam today. A resident Bitcoin baller, BK, says it may work better as an inflation hedge than a safety play. BK, you brought the charts again.
Yeah, I did bring the charts. Yeah, so listen, Bitcoin as a safe haven, I think has been debunked, number one, by the volatility, and two, by the fact that it has been highly correlated with the stock market. But something has changed here. So Bitcoin has been a very good inflation hedge when you're expecting inflation. Fed comes out in November, said, hey, we're going to crush inflation. I don't need my inflation hedge anymore, therefore Bitcoin falls. But because we've had this inflation shock from the Russia-Ukraine conflict, you now have negative real rates. And again, negative real rates are just a Wall Street way to say inflation's going to run hot, bond yields are going to be lower than inflation. In that environment, you need to look for something other than bonds. And you want to get the fastest horse in the race, and Bitcoin is it. Now, if we look back and say, have we seen this before? Is there precedent for this? Sure. Look at the negative real rates in January 2019, just before Bitcoin took off on a run. Real rates went from positive to negative. In March of 2020, we had real rates starting to go much more positive, and then all of a sudden we had the COVID shock, and they started to get more negative. Bitcoin took off. And then just over the last week again, we have a very similar macro setup. So for me, if you're looking for an inflation hedge and you think things are going to accelerate and you're watching wheat and corn and oil and copper and everything else go through the roof, hedge your portfolio with Bitcoin.
See, it's interesting because I saw the 13% increase as maybe some people also interpreting Bitcoin as this is the use case for Bitcoin in this conflict, that we've got donations flowing into Ukraine via cryptocurrency and maybe Russian money coming out of Russia via cryptocurrency. I mean, Tim, what's your take on the rise?
Well, I think it's also, to me, the great existential question around fiat currencies and great, ultimately a big question around the dollar. Look, as much as there's a rally and a safe haven around the dollar during times like this, when the U.S. government and other governments can suddenly freeze $300 billion of assets, suddenly makes other countries around the world say, hey, you know what? I realize we're not Russia, but I'm not sure I want to be in this position, and I want to be diversifying away from the dollar. This is ultimately Bitcoin positive, dollar negative, and gold positive, and PGMs positive. I mean, look, Russia deserves what they're getting here. The point, though, is that central banks suddenly can play judge and jury, and governments can play judge and jury, especially when they're the reserve currency master. And that's really ultimately where we are with the dollar. Our dollar, your problem, and I think it's an issue.
Yeah, I would just add, BK said it's been debunked as that kind of store of value, that digital sort of gold. And I know he doesn't mean that 100%, but at the end of the day, it's less than $1 trillion market cap. That's Bitcoin right here. And I think the bigger point, I think Tim was just saying this, is like, really, it has proven the case to be for censorship resistance. And I know that was one of the main pillars of the bull case for a long time. But still, at under $1 trillion, still down, I don't know, $25,000 from its all-time high made, just a few months ago or in the fall. It just doesn't seem even that compelling. It's banging around. It acts like a NASDAQ stock, and I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll see if the whole situation continues to go on and then it moves to China, and we'll see if there's a geopolitical dust up there, if capital flight really is the best use case.
Well, I mean, if China is taking a look at what's going on with Russia in terms of the impact of sanctions because of how tied up the Russian assets are in the U.S. dollar, et cetera, they might be looking at other ways, right, to have reserve currencies. Brian Kelly, I know you're raising your hand, so I'll go to you. You're polite and follow the rules.
Yeah, because I wanted to add one more thing to Dan's point, is that, there's another catalyst out there beyond that, and it's something what Tim talked about too. El Salvador, and I know it's a small country, but they're doing a Bitcoin bond in the middle of this month. They want to raise $1 billion. They have commitments for between $300 and $500 million. They're going to take that money and build out their mining, but also buy Bitcoin for their treasury. So they're going to do exactly what Tim's talking about and try to diversify away from the dollar. Now, the last time we had a $1 billion buyer in the market and real yields going more negative is when Tesla bought Bitcoin, and Bitcoin ripped from 35,000 up to 65,000. So again, there is another catalyst out there for it.
Tim mentioned existential risk. A lot of people don't know that Soren Kierkegaard was a great crypto person back in the day. Little known fact. That's why you watch Fast Money, by the way. I'll say this, BK. If this Federal Reserve were to blink, and that could happen because they've been spooked by the market before, That's your bull case for Bitcoin, in my opinion.